Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Every single time I stream, there's at least one person that asks me, who do you think deserves a Novaflare? Which I find kind of insane because I've made a video already talking about the exact same subject at like 20 minutes long. However, it has been a while, and apparently there is gonna be some Novaflares in early 2026, according to some leaks that we just gotten. Who knows if they're correct, but I thought it would be interesting then to just rank every character based on if they need a Novaflare or not. Similar ranking system from the last video. In the top tier you have needs it. In the second tier you have chopping block. These are characters that are close enough that they're probably going to get a Novaflare and nobody would really bat an eye for it. The next tier, some kit issues. These are characters that have some small issues in their kit that doesn't stop them from being viable in endgame content. However, if you do fix these nagging issues in those characters' kit, then it wouldn't be broken either and would actually be fair and balanced. Next, teammate problem. These are characters that are actually good. I don't think their kit has any like major issues. However, they just need a teammate. They're just lacking that one teammate for them to really be put in like the upper echelon. They don't need to be like having a Novaflare, but they do have problems in their overall team composition that could use some fixing by just adding new characters. And doesn't need it, as self-explanatory, these are characters that are strong enough to not need it, and not valid. These are 4-star characters and non-limited 5-star characters. I already put them in just so we don't have to waste time on that. How do we order this? Let's start with the last because it would be easy to just put all of these characters now because I don't have much to say about them. Isevans doesn't need it. Archer doesn't need it. Saber. Oh boy. Saber's kit in and of itself doesn't need a Novaflare. I actually think she's a better energy scaler than Aglaya, because in Aglaya's case the energy is just for uptime issues, meanwhile with Saber it actually converts into a lot more damage. Which makes her, actually I think her kit is very solid, but the problem is that her teammates are not as strong as you would expect them to be. Now the common thought between other people of Saber's best in slot team, which, you know, I wouldn't blame you if you think this, is her best team is Sunday, RMC, and Permansor Tarai. The thing is, this isn't actually her best in slot team. Saber's actual best in slot team is Saber, RMC, PT, and Cyrene. Yes, Cyrene actually, because not only does she give Saber an Excalibur for free at least once, she also is an ult spammer, which means more core resonance, and she has a true damage which doesn't get diluted. And because she's not a turn advancer, it means that Saber is a lot more comfortable in holding buffs. Just that bit of like whack synergy makes Saber's best in slot actually Cyrene instead of Sunday, and she's not even a Chrysos heir. I don't think that's what the direction of her kit is supposed to be, and I think she still has a future. I don't think Saber needs a Novaflare, I'll just say that again. I just think that Saber needs new teammates to make sense of her kit. Next is Phynon? Nope. Next is Cypher? Nope. Next is Hyacine? No. Anoxa? No. Castris? No. Mighty. Oh boy, what can I say about Mighty? Mighty's best in slot right now involves Cyrene, obviously, because just having one more Godslayer proc is actually good. But I do feel like his teammates feel really weird, because the thing about Mighty's best in slot team is that it has Ceredra, which is an attack scaler by the way, and Hyacine. The problem with Hyacine is that she is a lot of ticks of healing to AoE, whereas with Mighty he wants one large tick of healing to himself. There are 2 points of his team that are not perfect synergies, and it's only working because the numbers are so high. I think he does still have a future to have much better teams than what he has right now. Aside from that, I think Mighty's team outside of Cyrene needs a lot of work, and I don't think Mighty should be shackled to Cyrene too much, because that's gonna be a bigger problem for him in the future. Next is Tribi. Okay, doesn't need it. Aglaya. Oh no. Do I say it's a teammate problem or she doesn't need it? In fairness, Aglaya with Cyrene hits really hard, but Aglaya's E1 kinda ruins the discussion, because I think Mighty is a better character at E0 actually. Meanwhile, Aglaya's way too reliant on her E1 for her to be that good compared to everyone else, and it's just... I don't know. Just give her another energy scaling support to, you know, outside of Cyrene teams, and I think she would be here. Yeah. Next is the Herta. Okay, after my experience running Herta in 2 of my accounts in the latest Anom arbitration and in this latest patch, yeah, she's a lot more reliant on Tribute E1 now, but at this point she's kind of a pure fiction merchant and a constant 5 target merchant, which is probably going to be phased out pretty soon. They just released like 2 single target stages, which is crazy. But is that like a teammate problem or is that a matchup problem? Apparently Herta's average score is below 30k in pure fiction now for some reason. I don't know how that happens. I think she's still good. Oh, I just saw Evernight. Okay, just because of Evernight existing, I don't think Herta is too bad, but her value did get shot down a lot. I think for Herta to be better than what she is right now and not rely as much on Trivi, I think you could release like a new erudition support that just makes 5 targets a bit more consistent. Like, let's say, you know, Argenti Novaflare. Argenti Novaflare brings 2 statues to the enemy side which Herta can hit, so there's a minimum of 3 targets and a maximum of 7 targets. That is enough for Herta to feel good, I think. She doesn't really have any kit issues. She was always kind of a 5 target merchant, and she can be fixed by a new teammate. So I'll say that she has teammate problems. She doesn't have that many kit issues as of yet. You know, it is what it is, right? Next is Fugue. Fugue is a walking exo toughness gimmick, but it is a good gimmick, so she doesn't really need it. Her vertical investment isn't bad either, so that doesn't need a Novaflare at all. So I think she doesn't need it. That's pretty cool. Next, Sunday. Oh boy. Okay, so there's a lot of discussion right now about how good Sunday really is. Like I said in my video evaluating all of the 3.8 banner characters, Sunday is a character that doesn't really have that many best in slot teams. You would think that he's a best in slot for Saber, but actually it's Cyrene, which is weird. Then you would think he's, you know, best in slot for hybrid carries like Mighty and Sunday, but again, that's also in Cyrene's territory. And the actual undisputed best in slot for Sunday are characters that are either outdated or weird. However, that doesn't mean Sunday is bad. Sunday is a character that can serve as a body double, which is always going to be useful. Because if you're juggling Cyrene around with your Chrysos heirs, your only choice really is the second best in slot, which is Sunday. So, he's not completely garbage, as people would probably like to say about him. So if you update those outdated characters, or just give new characters that synergize better with Sunday than Cyrene, then yeah, I think Sunday would be here. But as of now, he kind of has a teammate problem. He's lacking best in slot teams. Next is Rappa. Parsing Break as a whole is really hard, because they've released Dahlia, and Dahlia is so strong that it masks the issues of Super Break a little too well. So it's hard to evaluate like Rappa, Bootil, and Firefly all on their own. Objectively speaking, Break doesn't have a teammate problem. Break has a lot of problems in its fundamentals. It's scaling off like 3 different things at the same time. The enemy's HP, the enemy's speed, and the enemy's toughness. If one of those goes up, the performance of Break goes down. So hey, it's not because Rappa's kit is bad, it's because Rappa is a Super Break character. So it's not exactly Rappa's kit's fault, it's more so that Super Break is at fault for this character existing. Actually, let me make a tier about this just so I don't have to think about it as hard. Yeah, I think this works, right? I'll also put Fugue here, obviously. I don't think it's specifically a problem with Dahlia, Rappa, or Fugue's kit. It's more so the problem of the archetype being really sketchy. And I can't really, you know, again, I can't say it's the kit's fault because they're making use of like a bad hand. They're making use of a bad archetype, so anything that they're gonna do is still gonna be put into question. But it's just, I'm making a new tier just for Super Break characters. I might as well put the other characters there. Okay, we put Bootil, and we have Firefly. That saved us a lot of discussion time for 2 of these characters. Next, Lingsha. Oh boy, I can't even say it's the archetypes issue. So, the problem with Lingsha is that she doesn't really confide with the archetype. Super Break is a team comp that is really reliant on sustainless because by nature it wants you to break. And breaking is a defensive tool. If you break, the enemies can't do anything for you. So if you break, you need a sustain less. And if you don't break the enemies fast enough, that means you'll need a sustain. But if you do that, you also don't have damage. So it's a triple threat of not having damage and not having a sustain at the same time. I will say this, because it is an inevitability that break will just not be able to sustain less because the damage is too low or the toughness is too high or the speed of the enemy is too fast. Lingsha will probably be a requirement at some point. And it's not like, she's stuck on teammate options either. Like if they release a super break character that actually, wants to be healed, then there you go. Lingsha is finally relevant. That's gonna have to be like a really extreme passive that Lingsha is better than someone like, let's say, Ron May. Or like even just 10% worse than Ron May is already a pipe dream. I don't think Lingsha really deserves that much of the doom posting that she's getting nowadays. Because, I mean, the truth of the matter is that break sustainless is the metric right now, but at some point sustainless is just not going to be viable. If break is not strong enough that you can't sustainless anymore, you probably shouldn't even run break in the first place. That's just the problem, right? I don't think she fits in the archetype issue. I think that she actually has some kit issues. I don't think she needs a Novaflare because there is a way for her to escape. Like I said, if they put out a super break character that actually wants specifically healing or shielding, then she's gonna be, the archetype issue. But the concept of the break sustain itself just doesn't work as well. Next, Fei Xiao. Okay, this one's also tough. Fei Xiao is a character that has really extreme matchups and really extreme setups. She's a lot like Zila, but actually realistic in a way. Her Eidolons are not bad either, so I wouldn't say that, she needs a Novaflare for her Eidolons. So because of how extreme Fei Xiao's performances are, and she is more matchup reliant, I don't think I can rank her any lower than Herta, really. The only thing that you have to note is that Fei Xiao has much more extreme performances than Herta, but she doesn't have very consistent performances compared to Herta in pure fiction. I think putting her in the same tier as Herta is pretty accurate in terms of needing a Novaflare. Next, Jiao Qiu. Oh god. Last time I ranked him at the top tier, and I still think he deserved the top tier. I think Jiao Qiu really is overdue to being a sustain. I think 50% vulnerability from a sustain sounds busted on paper, but in practice there's so much vulnerability that it isn't actually that busted. And if Jiao Qiu does become a sustain, he actually has, very strong meta-relevant teams. Like, DOT doesn't have a specific sustain. The best that they have is PT, and it's only buffing one character. With Jiao Qiu, he buffs everyone, and he also provides a DOT. So he would be perfect for a best-in-slot high ceilings team if he was a sustain. I think turning Jiao Qiu into a healer is fair game at this point, and I think he needs that for him to stay valuable. Okay, next, Yun Li. Is this... Okay, this is definitely an archetype issue. I'm sorry, this is not mono break. Yun Li is a character that I think is just lacking a counter support, really. Counter has such a specific, amount of weaknesses and strengths. Buffing Yun Li wouldn't exactly touch anybody else. Like, if you just had a dedicated counter support, you could give Yun Li 200% more damage from her original performance, and it wouldn't be imbalanced because there's only 2 characters that can do a counter. Just having a counter support for Yun Li, I think, is enough to put her at the top. I don't think it's necessarily a kit problem like these other characters. It's more so that the archetype has never gotten that much love. Jade doesn't really need a Novaflare because I feel like if there was going to be a stronger character than Jade, you would just put the 2 Jades together. Like, if you could just clone Jade and that Jade had bigger numbers, you just pair them both together and it would be pretty fire. She's always been kind of a PF merchant, and her performance in PF is dropping off a little bit, but it's not enough for me to say she has kit issues. Just another new AoE DPS is enough to keep her updated, so I think it's more so of a teammate problem. Actually, I should just rename this as archetype problem. Okay, next, Robin. Ooh, I don't know about this one. I think Robin has some kit issues. I feel like how small her damage window is not worth it. The 100% action advance on, her ult use is actually very good, but I don't think the numbers justified for comfortable use. I think they should buff Robin's damage to be better than Tribi, because Tribi's permanent, right? Why is she doing more damage than Robin? Even at single target, Tribi catches up, which shouldn't happen. Tribi should be far below Robin when it comes to single target. Like, I think that's just supposed to be the balancing for Robin and Tribi. So I think just fixing Robin's numbers is enough to fix her. But again, for this tier, there's just some things in their kit that admittedly could be tuned a bit higher and it wouldn't break the game and they would be better for it. In Robin's case, I just think they need to buff her damage a bit more so she can be far ahead of Trivi in single target instead of being kind of close, which it should not be happening. Aventurine, oh god. So Aventurine actually I think got a bit more valuable because of Anom Arbitration's release. Because the enemies hit so hard that Aventurine being so overkill defensive is actually very good for that game mode. But I will say that Aventurine is not exactly perfect, because the thing about Aventurine is that his best support is either, you know, Robin or Tribi. Like, for example, right, if you look at Modern Sustains, Hyacine synergizes with Tribi to an astonishing degree, or even Cyrene and Evernight, whichever you would consider the support in your team. PT synergizes with Sunday to a great degree. It's not enough for Sunday to be best in slot in probably the teams that you're thinking of, but it is an insane synergy. Lingsha synergizes with Super Break supports with her damage, which is, you know, still worse than an actual sustainless, but at least it's there. Meanwhile, with Aventurine, not really. He doesn't really have that synergistic factor that makes him, you know, far and ahead the best sustain in terms of personal damage. And I think that was the intention of Aventurine. The design of Aventurine is more of a sub DPS shielder, right? Like, that's what he was in his release. So I think Aventurine does have some kit issues in terms of his personal damage. Now, granted, that could be fixed with like a shield scaling DPS or something, so maybe we can put him at teammate problem 2. But he's between these, and I think I would rather take some kit issues. Next is Acheron. Oh boy, Acheron's numbers are not it these days. While I would say that, you know, Acheron is in the teammate problem tier next to Fei Xiao and Herta, that really isn't the case anymore. The height of Acheron's viability was when she was stronger than every Nihility character. So there were weak Nihility supports but a strong Acheron, which made her really valuable. But now that the HP inflation has gone up and there's actually good Nihility characters like Cypher and the updated Silverwolf, the problem with Acheron's E2 is that the Nihility supports are actually much more valuable now, to the point that they're going to be used on other teams except for a weaker DPS like Acheron, right? And even at E2, because the Nihility supports are so strong, if you run Cypher and Silverwolf, it's not that big of a difference compared to, you know, Cypher and Sunday, for example, with her E2. And that is a problem, because you're eliminating one of Acheron's main benefits, which is that she's able to run Nihility supports for not that much of a drawback. So now Acheron is in this weird state where she was being reliant on Nihility supports being bad, and now that Nihility supports are good, she's just kind of left hanging in the viability tree. So I think she's on the chopping block. She's not there just yet, like, she's not the worst thing ever, but she's getting a little too close to it, in my opinion. Next, Sparkle. Yeah, I think Sparkle is the quintessential teammate problem unit. I think she is good though. I don't think she particularly needs the Novaflare, but she does have a bit of a teammate problem. She's only best in slot for one character, which is obviously Archer. And even when Sparkle first released, the problem always was that she never had that best in slot DPS until Archer. So if you release a new, let's say, SP consuming DPS, which sounds very likely according to the leaks, then, you know, Sparkle doesn't really need it. But for now, just being chained to Archer kind of means that her value is a bit lower than these characters and doesn't need it. So I'll just put her here in the teammate problem section. Next is Black Swan. Holy. Okay, Black Swan has a lot of kit issues. Her ult mechanic is weird because it only takes in DOT damage on the enemy's turn, which is not most of the DOT damage these days, and yeah, her numbers just don't justify her gameplay, I think. Like, even in DOT teams, she ends up being worse than Ron May, who's a free character, and if there is going to be a third DOT character, then none of those High Sealance is not going to be replaced, Kafa is not going to be replaced, Black Swan 100% is going to be the one kicked out of the team. They might not do it though. Like, I think if they Novaflare Black Swan, then she's going to be a permanent fixture in the DOT teams, but as of now, she's on the chopping block. Once that third DOT character releases, she needs it. Like, there's no way to justify Black Swan at that point. Next, Dr. Ratio. He's just worse than Fei Xiao in every other way. The only saving grace that Dr. Ratio had was he's free, but people don't even remember that at this point. So, he needs a Novaflare. I think he has too many drawbacks compared to Fei Xiao for like worse results. I just don't think he has anywhere to go but a Novaflare. Unfortunately, he needs it. Next, Ron Mei. Ooh, Ron Mei does have some kit issues. I don't think she's on the rework chopping block because, to be honest, if you're gonna run Elation MC or you're running RMC, then you have no choice but to run Ron Mei. And Ron Mei is a good enough substitute. So she does still have meta relevance and she is quite good. It's just that she does have a couple of nagging issues in her kit. Like, I think the most egregious one is the energy and the duration of her zone. It should just be 3 turns. It should just be permanent like Tribi, I think. For now, she's just a fine character, you know, especially for a free character, she's actually just really good. Next, Argenti. I think there is a lot of creative ways you can go with Argenti. Like, if I was gonna give a Novaflare to Argenti, I would just, you know, take his boss fight as an example. Like I said with the Herta, just make it so that Argenti summons 2 statues on the enemy side, and that would make Herta a better character and Argenti an infinitely better character. So, I think Argenti needs it. Right? Is anybody gonna disagree? Whatever. Next is Kafka. Kafka is the DOT archetype, and unlike Break, it doesn't scale as badly, so, you know, she doesn't need it. She is the DOT archetype, and it's a stronger archetype than Break and Counter right now. Next is Blade. Blade is a character that, should I say he has a teammate problem? I mean, he is a 50-50 loss character, and he's surprisingly very good for that price. But I do think there is some ways for Blade to go. Like, I don't think Hyacinth is a completely perfect support for Blade. Like, I don't think it's finished just yet. Because the main thing that he gets out of Hyacinth is first the HP buff, but most importantly, the HP drain from Hyacinth's LC is very, very strong. So, if you have a sustain that does a lot of drain, like let's say they do 3 HP ticks on their turn instead of just 1, I think he would be a much better character. Because Hyacinth's teams rely more on how much HP you drain than how many ticks of it. Meanwhile, Blade and Jingliu are just how many ticks. And if you run this character with Hyacinth, it's probably not going to end up very well because it's 2 sustained teams, you know? Like, what are you doing? So yeah, I think Blade, even though he's a 50-50 loss character, he does have a bit of a teammate problem, but because he's 50-50 loss, I am considering just putting him in doesn't need it because he's way too strong for someone that you could get for free. So, I'll say it's a teammate problem. You know what? I'll be fair, I guess. Next is Silverwolf. Doesn't need it. Huohuo. Huohuo has a bit of a problem. I think there's nothing stopping them from, you know, making Huohuo's attack buff permanent. She does have very strong teams because of her energy generation, so it's also kind of a teammate problem that the only one she's notably very good for is both Saber and Aglaya. I don't think she needs a massive Novaflare either. Like, just making her attack buff permanent and giving it a higher boost, like let's say 90% attack, would be really funny. Oh, and also they should buff her healing, because her healing is really small nowadays that I feel like, you know, they should have energy scaling healing from Huohuo or something. Like, if you get 5 energy, you heal more HP from Huohuo. I think that's pretty fair. Next, Jingliu. I think I should put her at the same tier as Blade. Well, I have to consider the price tag again. So, Jingliu is... Nah, I'd say... You know what? I think this is fair, actually. I think Jingliu is a stronger character with Eidolons. It's just that Blade is much more free. Next is Topaz. Topaz is... has no job. Topaz was run out of a job by Cypher. And before that was run out of a job by Mutsa, and before that was run out of a job by March 7th. And March 7th is running her out of a job again because Break is actually good now. And no, I'm kidding. If I were to change Topaz, I would make it so that, you know, every 2 attacks is just a Nummy proc or something like that. And that would fix her energy problems, and a lot of problems in her kit, I think, gets fixed by that. Yeah, I think Topaz definitely needs a Novaflare. I hope that she becomes the Hunt Anoxa. That would be really funny. Next is Fu Xuan. Oh god. Like I said last time, the issue with Fu Xuan is that she just doesn't have a specific team. And because Permanent Sorcery is released now and Permanent Sorcery is free, she's even more run out of a job. And even when even when she's a 50-50 lost character, she's not saved because the free character just outright dumpstered her. I think they should give Fu Xuan either more damage, and generally just make her tankier is actually better. But just give her more damage or give her more support. Either one works, right? Just make her an actual best in slot in some team. Next, Imbiber to Lunai. I really don't. I think there's just not that much reason for Imbiber to Lunai to exist when Archer is free. I just think Archer is so much of a better character. So I would just touch his numbers actually. Maybe increase the SP limit of how much SP he can consume to give him a better future. And I think that's good too. I do think his Eidolons are a little flawed. I think his E2 could be fixed to be just a little bit better because it's kind of awkward to run E2 Imbiber to Lunai's action advance. Maybe turn it into an extra turn. I don't know. Just adjust his Eidolons a little bit. Next, Luocha. Luocha's best role is a Mighty healer, and in concept, it's a great niche, especially with Mighty's E2 scaling off healing. But Luocha's Eidolons don't really make sense for Mighty, specifically the one that gives more shield. Why does Luocha give a shield to everyone? That's kind of weird. But the problem that Luocha has is even though he has this really strong niche, the numbers are just not enough to catch up to it. Like, if you find out who Mighty's best in slot team is, it's Hyacine. It's either Hyacine, Tribi, Cyrene, or Hyacine, Ceredra, and Cyrene. And the reason for that is because Hyacine is a much stronger sustain in terms of numbers. Maybe if they release a new DPS that just scales off raw healing, but I don't think they're gonna do the same design twice. I think Mighty is fine enough, we don't need any more of those. Next is Jingyuan. Previously I made a new tier for Jingyuan, but I don't... After the newest Anom arbitration and testing him out, I've been woken up to how bad Jingyuan really is. The problem with Jingyuan is that he's a complete character now at this point. He really doesn't have anywhere else to go. All that you could do is touch his numbers. Because the last buff that he got was Permanent Sword to Ryan. It wasn't even that big of a buff. Because he already had a summon, so he wasn't getting those Sunday benefits. He already had them. And he still ends up being a mediocre character. And if you look at his team, you have Sunday, which was his perfect support. You have Permanent Sword to Ryan, which was not perfect, but how much more can you go with Jingyuan buffing? Then you have your third slot, which I guess could be Tribi or anything. It's just... And his damage is much worse than Acheron, so I can't even say that he's on the chopping block. He just needs a Novaflare, man. His Eidolons are also just terrible. I mean, they didn't know what to do back then in 1.x, so just Novaflare his Eidolons to be better. I guess just have a busted E1. Adjust his numbers. I'm not sure if putting in Currency Wars Jingyuan is too unbalanced, but that could be a frame of reference for his Novaflare if they want to do that. Next is Zila. Yeah. Should I explain Zila? Is it really necessary for me to explain Zila? The concept of Zila's kit is actually very good. I'm a fan of it. It has a lot of min-maxing and it really scales well with relics. But the problem is that it's way too much work. At some point you just have to pull Eidolons at that to make Zila feel good. And well, she is a 50-50 lost character, so I guess it's fine, but she's the worst offender of probably the worst Eidolons, and also just the worst passives. I don't know, there's a lot of things to talk about with Zila. It could be an entire video on its own, so I'm not gonna talk about it too long right now, so I'll just end the tier list right here in this video. And yeah, that's the entire video. I've been talking for 50 minutes. I'm gonna touch this up and try and make it 20 minutes instead. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Heading into 2026, these are the characters that I think need a Novaflare for next year. Who do you guys think needs the Novaflare heading into 2026? I'd be very interested to hear about it in the comments. And yeah, that's all from me. Like, share, subscribe, do the algorithm stuff, and I'll see you in 2026, brother. Hell yeah!